Welcome back everyone, and thank you so much for joining me. I have finally decided to make another video after my recent issues that I have. If you haven't watched my most recent video, I'll just quickly catch you up. I was recently diagnosed with an illness. That means I'm unfortunately going blind. Due to this, I did actually have to sell my car because I'm not allowed to drive anymore. I know. Everyone feels sorry for me. It makes me feel so much better. Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, to cheer myself up, and because I now had some loose change flying around, I went ahead and bought myself this. Yeah, you can actually just see it popping up over there behind the little stand that I've got. I specifically bought the PlayStation 5 so I was able to play this. Now, I did that because I absolutely loved the first one. Horizon Zero Dawn is definitely in my top 20 favourite games of all time. And I was desperate to play the sequel on the platform it was designed for. I know I could have got it for PS4, but I wanted to play it on the platform it was originally designed for, on the PS5. Now, one of the reasons I really enjoyed the first game, and I'm currently enjoying the second game, is the open world nature of them. If you've watched any of my previous videos, I always talk about this. I absolutely adore open world games. They are some of my favourites. I have in fact in the past made entire videos about open world games and what are my sort of top 5 or whatever, you know. I love them. Personally, I think some of the greatest games ever made, particularly some of the greatest games recently made, were open world. And they were great because they were open world. The very nature of open world games is what made them fantastic. But I do realise that these games are not in fact for everyone, and there are actually some recurring problems that keep happening with open world games. They aren't perfect, and they are a little bit love-hate. Not everyone is into them. Whilst thinking about this sort of love-hate dynamic with open world games, what actually dawned on me was that I think part of the reason some people don't like them is that open world games are in fact really easy to mess up for a few different reasons. They can be great when everything goes well, but they are so easy to get wrong. So I bring up the new Horizon game, Forbidden West, not only to show off that I now have a PlayStation 5, but because actually I think it's quite a good example, potentially, of one of the big problems with open world games. They can feel very overwhelming. As a lover of these games, whilst playing this, I will admit I felt a little,
to be honest,
in comparison to the scale of the map and just the sheer scope of the game. And I get it, man. You just start this new game, you rush towards the active quest marker, but the map is just filled with question marks everywhere, or the screen is just overlaid with so many different markers and places that you can visit. It, I feel, can become extremely easy to lose yourself in these games. In fact, being able to lose yourself like that is actually one of the reasons I really love open world. However, I get it that maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea, and it can certainly be overdone. I think the most recent examples I can think of would be maybe Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Dying Light 2, where there are so many extraneous things to do that they can end up being a massive distraction, or they can end up just diminishing the quality of the main campaign. Or an incredibly standard one is the gameplay simply becomes very repetitive quite quickly. I understand, by the way, there is an argument to say that, you don't have to do all of this extra content. And that is true. Or you can do it the other way around. You can fast forward through the main quest and then do all of the extra stuff afterwards. Personally, I normally enjoy doing all of the side stuff first. I like to leave the main quest to be the absolute last thing that I touch. But as an experiment, with the recent LEGO Star Wars game, the Skywalker Saga, I actually did the opposite. I hammered through the main quest with very little exploration. I did do some. The problem for me is after I completed the main quest, I found the exploration elements were lacking something. They felt meaningless and without purpose now that there was no sort of end goal in sight. I do get that this is more of a personal take and not everyone will feel the same as me, and some people will actually prefer to do it the other way around. I suppose I just wanted to say that I have specifically done it both ways in preparation for this video, just to test which one I preferred, you know? And side note, I actually could not recommend that Lego Star Wars game enough. It was genuinely really good, even if just for the story portions of it. It was so much fun. You should definitely go out and get it if you're looking for something new at the moment. A related problem, though, to this idea of being overwhelmed by something is map size. There seems to be a war to constantly get the bigger map. This can work, it can be great, but with an enormous map, things can feel like they just end up taking way too long to complete. Or, the sheer massive size of the map can mean that the world itself feels empty and uninhabited. Actually, see the earlier Just Cause games for a great example of that. This can quickly lead to them becoming time sinks, which I've actually done a video on before, which I'll link up here, this site, sorry, if you want to take a look at that and my issue with time sinks. I think the key here is balance, though. It's the Goldilocks zone. The map isn't too big, but it's also not too small. Also, there isn't an overabundance of content, or if there is a lot of content, it's extremely varied so that it doesn't become super repetitive. The second big issue I've personally found with open world games is that they make it extremely difficult to tell a compelling story. No. Before you go mad and start listing all of the open world games that do have a fantastic story, in point in case, actually Horizon Zero Dawn, one of the things I loved about it was the story. I said it makes it difficult to tell a compelling story, not impossible. And it really does make it difficult. Let me explain. Let's compare a similar sort of game like Uncharted or Tomb Raider. I think most people would agree that these games fall squarely into action-adventure, with little to no exploration involved. What these games effectively are on rails. They direct you through the game at their own pace. Now, this is the pace that the developers and the writers wanted to take you through the story. By controlling the speed of the narrative, the writers can control the length of time between different story beats in the game. From here, they can control the pathos, they can control the urgency of a scene, they can control everything. In contrast with open world games, you could complete a story mission where the next part of it is urgent. You, say, have to save an ally's life. And then you can go off and spend 30 hours and 2 weeks in real life doing your own thing, doing your own stuff, completely ignoring the story. This destroys any sense of urgency and pacing the writers had for the main story. Making a compelling story in open world games is extremely difficult for that reason alone. You cannot control how long the player will take between doing the different story elements, and that becomes even more difficult if you give them the ability to play different story missions at the same time. Like, it's a branching story rather than a single directed narrative. This makes it just extremely easy to mess up. Something else I've noticed, which actually really annoys me, and maybe it shouldn't, maybe it's small, but it really gets to me, is I feel open world games find it difficult to reliably convey the amount of time that has passed in-game. So a great example of this would be Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's the worst offender I can think of off the top of my head. So, spoilers ahead if you've not played that game. It's, a year old now or something? But anyway, whatever, spoilers. You leave Scandinavia at the beginning of the game for England, and then at some point later in the game, you return to Scandinavia. One of the characters notes that it has been years since you've been back. Nowhere in-game does it ever feel like you've been in England for years. Weeks maybe, sure, but not, I think it was something like 4 years you're supposed to have been gone. And once you realise that, certain story elements actually start to make a little bit more sense as well. They did to me at least. I don't know, maybe I missed something, but it didn't feel like they had been that long. And I found that in other games as well. That's just the best example I can think of at the moment. My third problem with open world games that I've noticed is not actually an issue with a particular game, or even the genre. It's an issue with the industry as a whole. So, think about it like this. When something is good, and it makes a lot of money, other people start to copy elements of it, because they want to make money as well, which is cool. It's their businesses, that's what they do. I'm not going to have a go at them for doing what they do. They're there to make money. Cool. You end up, though, then, in a world where all online games are Fortnite and Battle Royale, and all single-player games have become open world. Now, maybe I'm being a little bit reductive, and it's not as simple as that, but I think it is true to say that open world games really have started to dominate the single-player space. Even franchises which are historically from different genres have started either going full open world, like the Assassin's Creed franchise, starting with Origins, or they are starting to incorporate open world elements, say, see the new God of War on PS4. I've just said how much I love this genre, so why is this a problem for me? Well, in a way it's kind of not. I feel like, dare I say, we're in a sort of golden age of single-player video games at the moment. I mean, if I listed my top 20, most of them are from the last 5 or 6 years. But if you don't like open world games, but you're looking for a single-player experience, yeah, I can get that it could be extremely irritating at the moment. The other downside is, as I keep mentioning, is that these games are actually really easy to mess up in many different ways, which tends to lead to a lot of them just being average, or actually outright bad. You do have some golden ones, like the Horizon game, Red Dead Redemption, etc., but a lot of them end up being just completely average. With more and more and more open world games being produced, I genuinely do believe that this is starting to hurt the reputation and viability of the genre. Eventually, I think this will lead to people not liking them anymore, maybe feeling they're even a little bit invasive, and eventually not buying them. And from there, gone. No more open world games, or certainly at least not many, which I would be extremely sad about. To summarise, I absolutely love open world games, but I do understand that they are a bit love-hate, they are not to everyone's taste, and that they are extremely easy to get wrong, meaning that there's a lot of bad examples out there of the genre. Personally though, I still think there's actually a lot of potential left in the open world genre, and I am massively looking forward to some of the upcoming OW games, such as the Harry Potter game, Hogwarts Legacy, and of course the new God of War Ragnarok. There are quite a few other open world games coming up soon as well, and they look really interesting to me, and I'm very excited. But that in and of itself is an example of this invasive aspect of them that I mentioned, so I mean, I guess we'll see where all that leads. For now though, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to see more right now, I'll put 2 videos on screen here and here. This one is the latest video that I made, although it's a bit of a tragic one, so maybe skip it. And this one is a suggestion from YouTube that they think you'll like from my library. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.